The Trump White House is monitoring the war in Ukraine. A special envoy is in Saint Petersburg for a high-stakes meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Steve Witkoff has been pressing the Kremlin to accept a ceasefire deal with Ukraine. This comes as President Trump says, quote, Russia has to get moving on a peace deal. Russian forces currently hold the advantage in Ukraine, and the war the White House calls terrible and senseless. And joining us now is Stephen Moore, president of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Stephen, thanks for coming back on. Steve Witkoff met with Russian President Putin. What do you make of the meeting and the Trump administration's progress toward ending the war?
Well, I'm actually pretty concerned because I think that Putin responds to strength, and I don't think the Trump administration is showing the strength that needs to be shown. Witkoff, I think, is new to this and is still on a steep learning curve. He said last time he met with Putin that he was a nice guy. And as you know, Putin has shut down every church in occupied Ukraine. There is not one Catholic priest left in occupied Ukraine. So he is not a nice guy. And the best way to deal with them is not giving them everything they want.
President Trump did put on social media that it's time for Russia to get moving, and he called the war terrible and senseless. Do you think the president will start to increase pressure on Russia?
Well, I hope so, because the last time they announced a peace agreement, or I'm sorry, a ceasefire, the criteria of the ceasefire was that each country would not hit the other's energy infrastructure, because Ukraine has actually been very successful in debilitating the Russian refining capabilities with their long-range missiles and drones. And of course, the Russians have been trying to take out Ukraine's energy infrastructure since the winter of 2022. And so the day after Trump negotiated this ceasefire against energy infrastructure, Putin hit a Ukrainian energy installation. So it's difficult to see where Putin wants peace.
So where do things stand on getting a ceasefire, considering what we know at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think Putin's playing games, and I think that it's the ball is in Vladimir Putin's court, and I think Trump needs to show some capability to get Putin to do what he wants him to do. Because if you're negotiating for Ukraine, just looking for security guarantees, you're looking for a way to make this war stop. And the difference between stopping and halting is a big one, because if this halts just a few months, a year, or even a couple of years, Putin's just going to rearm. And he's going to come back against Ukraine and the Baltic states and Poland and anyone else who gets in his way, because his goal is to reconstitute the Russian Empire.
Well, lastly, Stephen, European allies vow to send billions more to the war effort in Ukraine. How do you view Europe's role moving forward in this war amid the negotiations? Well,
Europe needs to lead. So Europe has been on vacation since 2014 when this war started. Almost none of the countries have hit their 2% goal for NATO, except for this last year. There's still 8 NATO countries that have not met their 2% spending goal on defense. So, and Europe as a whole has sent more money to Russia in the form of cheap LNG, cheap liquid natural gas payments, than they've sent to Ukraine for its defense. So it's time for Europe to get in the game and get moving on this.
All right, Stephen Moore, thank you for your time.
Thank you.